Good morning and welcome to the Village of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Friday, December 13th, 2024. First, the mayor and the village trustees and this board wishes everybody a happy holiday season and a happy new year. And the first order of business is we have the minutes from November 8th, 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First, determination out of 3 today. In the application of David Benjamin Harrison, 45 Baiting Hollow Road, Suffolk County Tax Map number 301-13-2-4 for an area variance to construct a detached garage and make alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming pool is granted. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Gabby, can you pull the board, please?
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Mr. Darko?
Yes.
And Mr. McMullen's going to read the next two.
Okay. In the application of East Hampton Tennis Club, 178 Montauk Highway, Suffolk County Tax Map number 301-7-2-4.1, to modify a previously granted variance and special permit to reflect a change in size of pickleball courts previously approved on property that operates as a membership club is granted, such that the relief granted by this board in its prior determination dated October 13th, 2023, is continued and confirmed in all regards, with the exception that references to the August 4th, 2023 survey contained therein are deemed replaced by the September 11th, 2024 survey, inclusive of the dimensions of the pickleball courts as reflected thereon. May I have a motion?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Gabby, please pull the board.
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Mr. Darko?
Yes.
We have a continuation of a hearing for Hook Pond Lane, LSJ LLC, 16 Hook Pond Lane. So a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have the determination prepared.
In the application of Hook Pond LSJ LLC, 16 Hook Pond Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map number 301-8-14-12, for a wetlands permit to demolish the existing improvements consisting of retaining walls, patios, and a residence, the nearest structure being 100 feet from the wetlands, and to regrade land is granted. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Gabby, please pull the board.
Mr. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
We do have one adjournment today, Guildhall of East Hampton, 158 Main Street, till January 10th, 2024. Now we're on to the new hearings of the day regarding Beach House Realty LLC, 19 Lee Avenue. We've had several prior adjournments on this application and it appears on the agenda today. Stated at the board meeting November 8th, 2024, there'll be no further adjournments. Accordingly, the application is deemed withdrawn without prejudice to refile. Well, I don't need a motion on that, do I, Tim? No. Okay, thank you. First hearing of the day, Gabby.
Application of Ira and Heather Shapiro, Suffolk County Tax Map number 301-9-1-8, for a wetlands permit and variances in accordance with Chapter 278 zoning and Chapter 163 freshwater wetlands to raise the existing improvements and construct a 2-story residence, porches and patios, swimming pool, drainage structures, and landscaping. Variances of 13.8 feet and 17.7 feet are requested from Section 278 3A5A to construct a residence 21.2 feet from the front yard lot line and to construct porches and stoops, the nearest being 17.3 feet from the front yard lot line, where the required front yard setbacks are 35 feet. A 24.7-foot variance is requested from Section 278 3A5B to construct a swimming pool 20.3 feet from the front yard lot line, where the required front yard setback is 45 feet. A freshwater wetlands permit in accordance with Section 163.5 and variances from 278 3A8 in the amount of 68.2 feet, 59.3 feet, 53.4 feet, 39.7 feet, 20.2 feet, and 127.8 feet are requested to construct drainage systems. The nearest being 81.8 feet from wetlands, a terrace 90.7 feet from wetlands, and a swimming pool 96.6 feet from wetlands. Covered porches, the nearest being 110.3 feet from wetlands, a two-story residence 129.8 feet from wetlands, and fencing 22.2 feet from wetlands, where the required wetland setback are 150 feet. A freshwater wetlands permit and variance from section 278 3A8 is required to permit native revegetation 22 feet from a wetland in lawn area, 80 feet from a wetland where 125-foot setback is required. The subject property is 25,464 square feet in size and is located at 133 Egypt Lane. The property is located in Residence District R40 and FEMA Flood Zones AE Elevation 10. This project requires approval of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Thank you. Mr. Goldstein, good morning.
Hi, Andrew Goldstein, Ackerman Partners for Ira and Heather Shapiro. First, as an overview, I'd like you to consider that this application is far less complex than the reading of the public notice would suggest. Ira and Heather have lived in this house at 133 Egypt Lane for almost 18 years. It's, many of you know it, it's a rather unique house in the way it's the only house that looks like it does on Egypt Lane. It's a house, it's 2,200 square feet. It has 2 bedrooms and a sleeping loft. The Shapiros have lived there for 18 years. As I said, they have 3 children, all of whom are adult and 2 of whom are married. The Shapiros themselves are contemplating retirement. So the house, as Ira once said to me, has been a challenge to live in because of the lack of space. And they'd like to build another house, a new house on the same lot. To basically accommodate what could be actually an increased use. 133 Egypt Lane is a very compromised lot. It's of an unusual shape. It is 75% of the lot's area is within 150 feet of the wetlands. The actual building the legal building envelope is only 1,300 square feet in area. It's impractical in the context of what the Shapiros need, because you really couldn't build any larger house than what exists now in the legal location. The existing house is pre-existing non-conforming as to the wetland setback. The swimming pool that we asked for, again, there's no legal building envelope for a swimming pool in this property. So the project is to build a house. To I guess give you some idea of the scale, we've outlined from the survey the area in brown or tan is the area of the house. That's the existing house. The area in green, which overlaps it, is the area of the new house. And as Billy Hajek mentioned in his memorandum, it's the new house is essentially in the footprint of the old house, with the exception of a porch here, which exists, and this yellow area, which is a new porch. These areas will not have any basements at all. So the principal disturbance is within the area of the old house, and we estimate that the additional disturbance within the 150-foot setback, which is here, is about 160 square feet. So I'll deal with that. So They'd like to build a house, they'd like to build a swimming pool. The swimming pool is 16 by 26. It's really not a very large swimming pool. And they need relief also, because it's a new house, they have to put in an IA septic system. This IA septic system is going to replace a conventional septic system, which is located within the 150-foot setback, within the 200-foot setback, rather, and is in the groundwater, as it happens. The new system will require a small variance for the pump basin and treatment tank, which are sealed systems. The effluent is going to be more than 200 feet away from the wetlands, so that's essentially in a conforming location. Again, the swimming pool is going to use an ionization system. There will be a drastic reduction in the potential chemical use. I should note that swimming pools, the properties on either side of the applicant's property, as well as the property at 100 Egypt Lane, all have received variances for swimming pools that are actually closer to the wetlands than the one that we are requesting here. The IA system, while technically not mitigation, is actually a benefit to the wetlands and the community as a whole, I would say. And while it's not mitigation as one would ordinarily think of it, it should be deemed as mitigation because it's a necessary concomitant to the approval of this application. Finally, there is going to be right now there's a 6,100 square foot plant buffer. The applicants are going to expand that by 1,000 feet to 7,100 square feet with native plantings. It will be irrigated for a year to just let the plants take. Billy mentioned that he would like to see more woody plants. The wildflowers that they have, I think, are not a major part of this additional 1,000 square feet. The bulk of what you see in the planting plan was approved by the board in 2007 and has been installed. And so there's 1,000 square feet that's primarily in the area of the existing lawn, which will have some wildflowers. These will not use any more water or require any more water than the woody plants, and there's really just, I think, they're proposed really, as Jim Walker at InterScience told me, to make the area more attractive so that the owners will be inclined to keep it as opposed to remove it. And again, I don't think that the choice of plants should really be material to your determination. They are they're native. So the house is going to be of traditional architecture. It's going to be more in keeping with the area. We require a front yard setback variance for both the swimming pool and the house because the house has two front yards, one of them along Pondview Lane. The house, as designed, is not going to loom over Pondview Lane. The swimming pool within the setback of Pondview Lane is not a noise issue. It is more. It is some distance away from the neighbor next door, Mrs. Kenner, who I spoke to, and who did not evidence any objection to the application. I think she told me she was going to say nothing, which should not be somehow assumed to be rejection. It's just saying nothing.
And the height of the current house, Mr. Goldstein?
I'm sorry?
The height of the current house?
The height of the current house? I honestly, I don't know. Maybe, Norm, do you know what, and what's the new house?
Just under the 30.
So it's 27 feet as opposed to 30 feet. Again, the old house, as you know, is a triangular roof.
Seen it.
And the new house will be 3 feet higher. I don't think any of us will notice that. As you look at these variances, I think they're not substantial really at all, but to the extent that the size might give you some concern, I think the circumstances of the entire violation, the entire application should give you some comfort. There's no change in the character of the neighborhood by anything they're doing. The wetlands should be deemed to be a plus for the wetlands to the extent that the wetlands are an important part of neighborhood character. They are, there's no detriment to any neighboring property. House is not going to loom, swimming pool is not going to make noise. And I think the physical and environmental aspects of the property are going to be enhanced by the application, certainly not denigrated. While this is a self-created difficulty in the sense that the applicants bought the property with the legislation in effect, it's not going to be shouldn't be dispositive here in light of the weight of the other factors. So I wanted to ask if anyone has any concerns that I might address or questions.
Board members?
I have one question. The area where the septic system is going, is that going to require additional grade to lift it up?
I shouldn't think so. Will.
Can you
Look by the drawing.
can you please come to the podium and your name, please? Thank you.
I'm just going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
David Rhodes, 17 Main Street, Sag Harbor, New York.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, where the septic system is being proposed, in order to maintain the 2 foot of separation to the bottom of it, it does have to come up 1 foot in order to, that's evident in detail 6 on sheet C1. You can see that the existing ground is dashed, and you'll see that the proposed grade comes up just slightly to accommodate the separation.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that?
Any board member? Yes, Mr. Rose?
A question relating to the grounds for the being sought for the variance. You said that the owners have had the property for 17 years?
Almost 18.
18 years, and they are retiring. So what's the time frame for the construction, demolition construction?
I assume it'll be probably a year and a half to be.
And the rationale for the variance is what? Just the
Well, the rationale for the variance is that there's no way they can have these improvements without the variance. I mean, the property is oddly shaped. It's 75% of the area of the property is within the wetlands setback. There's no legal building envelope for the swimming pool, so the benefits to be achieved cannot be achieved without a variance.
but you mentioned, I think at the start, the constraints of the existing house for their use.
Well, that's.
What are the constraints?
Pardon me? I'm sorry.
You just specify what those constraints are.
Well, they've had 3 children and 2 bedrooms and a sleeping loft. So on the surface, the math doesn't work so well. So now 2 of the kids are married. Everybody wants to have their children out. They're going to be grandchildren, so they're just looking for a sort of normal-sized house. That's a sort of a personal benefit. But to achieve those benefits, they need a variance because the property is so non-conforming. The property is also non-conforming as to the building line width. It gets to use the relief setbacks, and that's one reason why everything gets squeezed in so much.
Understood.
Anybody in the audience have anything like to talk? Billy, Andy, can we just have Billy talk about his memo?
Yeah, go.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Billy Hayjack for the Village of East Hampton. I prepared a report dated December 10th to the board. I'll briefly summarize it for you. Won't read the whole thing. was discussed. It's a 25,000 square foot lot, roughly, slightly larger than that. It's in the R40 zoning district, so it's non-conforming with respect to lot area and also, as Mr. Goldstein indicated, lot width. It's on the corner of Egypt Lane and Pondview Lane, and it's an unusual shape. It's very long, over 300 linear feet long, but it's only 75 feet wide along Egypt Lane. Roughly a third of the property contains wetlands and standing water associated with Hook Pond, and the wetlands are regulated by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. It's a relatively low-lying parcel. Elevations are very low. Sits between 7 and 8 feet above sea level, and groundwater sits very high above sea level in this particular location, given its proximity to Hook Pond. The board did grant relief on this property once before, back in 2007. Mr. Shapiro obtained a wetlands permit to do a wetland restoration. They removed some invasive plants and revegetated a portion of the property. And this project, as described, proposes to raise the existing improvements and construct a new house. In terms of wetland, setbacks, the proposed improvements will be in compliance with the front yard setbacks from Egypt, the front yard setback relief. All the relief that's needed is from Pondview Lane and from the wetlands. So all the improvements comply with the setbacks from Egypt, but it's the Pondview Lane side that requires the relief, and obviously the wetland setbacks. I won't read through the relief that's needed, but just one thing to keep in mind is the existing house has an elevation of, first floor elevation of 8.8 feet. The proposed residence, in order to become FEMA compliant, it's in an AE zone, elevation 10, meaning that the first floor has to be at 12 feet. They're proposing a first floor at 13 feet. So under the first floor, there could be no, they could use it for storage, but they won't have any habitable space, or, there can be no materials or anything down there. It's pretty much a void space except for storage. They will have, I guess, 1 foot below the joist they could put utilities just below the joist.
So it's 8 feet now, it's going to be 13 because of FEMA compliance.
Yes.
But FEMA compliance, you're saying, is 12?
Yes.
Okay.
In addition to the residence, there's a series of porches, patios, and covered porches that are proposed. There's two covered porch off the back side, the wetland side of the house. There's a covered porch on the first floor, and then there's some, patios. Similarly, with the residence, the swimming pool is slightly elevated out of grade. It's about 3 feet out of grade when you look at the top of the coping. The septic system is being located the furthest possible distance from wetlands. I think it is, as Mr. Goldstein indicated, it's an environmental improvement over the existing system, which is likely non-conforming and sitting in groundwater. The curb cut is also being shifted slightly to the north. I think that's also an improvement with the redevelopment. It gets it further away from Pondview. It's not much greater, but it's an improvement for site distance purposes. Because of the shallow depth of groundwater and the elaborate drainage design, the application was referred to Vin Gaudiello, the village's consulting engineer, for review. Vin provided comments requesting some additional information. The applicant has responded with a revised set of plans, and they've been referred to Vin. We haven't received any comments back from Vin yet. So I would suggest the board keep the record open until we receive Vin's second round of comments. And in terms of revegetation, I just made a note. They're used, the plant proposes like 25 varieties of plant species, which, if this is revegetation, plants don't generally grow like that in a natural environment. I understand they want to make it pretty, which is fine, but sometimes simple is best. That's all. I perform a lot of inspections for as-built conditions, and plans never really get installed the way they're designed. And I just think keep it simple might be just a suggestion. That's all. I outlined the variance standards for the board. If you have any questions about that or my report, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Board members?
I just have a comment, and I'm glad the record's being held open because I've gone by the site a few times. I haven't gone on the site. would like to take a look at it, because it's a constrained site, clearly a constrained site. It's also one that's, was purchased and has been inhabited subsequent to all the regulations that constrain the site. And I think how this impacts the Pond View lane frontage is something that requires some examination and thought. But I'm glad the record's being held open so we can visit, and in a sense, if we can arrange, if the applicant can give some times over the next couple of weeks that are available to come take a look, that would be helpful.
You can go whenever you want. On this, I don't
Don't want
think
to get hit by any dogs or shot by
it's not
animals.
gated. They only have an 8-gate fence,
So, and,
I'm sorry.
one quick comment, Andy. We don't have any construction protocol on this, do we? I didn't see it in the, I think because we are in a sensitive area, we should have some kind of construction protocol.
Well, there is a project limiting, part of the application is to install fencing, replace the fencing that's there, I think, and that was deemed to be a project limiting fence. They're not going to go into the wetlands. Obviously, they're going to be taking down, there's going to be heavy equipment involved, but it's a necessity, but they're probably not going to be that any nearer the wetlands than the houses. John, to your point, on the height of the house, old house was 27 feet. This is, what, 31, but that 31 includes raising the height of the freeboard. So essentially, it's almost the same. I wanted to just bring up Jim Walker, if I can, who can talk about the planting plan and the rationale for it, and also, Billy mentioned that his concern was that somehow I don't know if he thinks the plants are going to fight with each other, but but just, what the variety of plants and what it's meant to.
I'm just going to swear you
Mr. Walker,
in. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
James L. Walker, 54 Center Avenue, Southampton.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Okay.
morning.
Good morning. I've worked for IRA for a number of years and authored the planting plan the first time through. The important thing to notice here is all these lots have green areas down to the water. IRA does not. IRA replanted this the first time through at the village. It's important to note, and Billy Hajek might not have focused on this part, but we're also moving the wetlands planting this way. There's a fence here. We're expanding the wetlands buffer this way, and we're expanding the wetlands buffer that way. Most of the materials that IRA planted originally are very big at this point. Here's the expansion towards the water. Here's the expansion towards the house. But those plant materials are designed to mimic a natural situation where you have trees and shrubs that are larger on the property lines, and then closer to the path, they step down and you have attractive native grasses, wildflowers, ferns, and these make a attractive wetlands buffer that functions well in terms of habitat, but also they're intended to last. And the reason why you want wetlands buffers to last is so people don't end up taking the plants out and mowing those areas that are sensitive. This is a nice, well thought through planting plan, and it is part and parcel of the old one with addition this way and addition that way, and it's under review at the state. I'm very confident that those plant materials will succeed and do very well.
Question.
Please.
To the adjacent properties, green areas that you were talking about, I assume those are pre-existing from the regulations. Do you know how long that those areas were made ago? They were made green?
They may have been green for a long period of time or a short period of time. I don't know. Andy has some concept in terms of wetlands permits that were issued for these people. I do not know. The thrust of the air photo is simply to show Ira Shapiro is doing a big improvement to the wetlands buffer on this particular property.
Thank you.
Well, the only thing I can say is on the Kenner property was built, redeveloped in around probably 86, 87, may have been just as the wetlands were being, wetland statute was being enacted. The property on the other side, I know he's had a building permit within, foreseeable memory, and so he was after the statute. So the building department had a chance to look at that. I don't know what they're. I don't represent them, so.
No, understood. Thank you. Tom will just.
That's very helpful.
Interesting to have the information.
I would ask if you could keep the record open until 2 days before your next meeting. So if we are going to have to come back, if you read it and it requires us to be here to, that would be possible, so it's not to delay a determination one way or the other. But you're holding it open for the engineer to have, and he's had it for a long time, so.
Yeah, I think we're going to keep it open, Andy. And I agree I think we're going to keep it open and wait till the comments come back from Finn at Grainer Group.
So that means there will be no determination next meeting?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the next hearing of the day.
Application of Gregory L. Wilson and Lisa C. Wilson, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-3-7-10 for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to construct a pool house and to legalize coverage. A 768 square foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A-9A to construct a pool house and legalize the construction of patios, resulting in 4,937 square feet coverage, where 4,169 square feet of coverage is permitted by way of a prior variance. The maximum permitted coverage by zoning is 4,124 square feet. A 200.9 foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A-5A to construct a pool house at 14.1 feet from a front yard lot line, where the required front yard setback is 35 feet. The subject property is 18,121 square feet in area and is located at 30 The Circle in Residence District R20. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, John Tarbett for the applicant. This is a new house. It was, relatively new house. It was built in 2016 on the Circle. And it has a traditional septic system. It's a house and a pool. The applicant, since the CO was issued in 2016, installed a patio without a permit, which, because the house is 1 story, it essentially uses up all the available coverage on the property. The house and the pool use up all the available coverage on the property. They actually do use up all the available coverage. So the addition of the patio, which meets all setbacks, actually goes over coverage. And he would now like to add a small pool house. Total, with a pool house and the patio that was already constructed, we'd be about 750 square feet over the allowable coverage. When it came to me, the first thing I said to the applicant was that we needed to make sure it wouldn't offend any neighbors. So we reached out to all the neighbors and received positive feedback from all of the neighbors. There are no objections to adding the existing pool house, the existing patio, which has been there for a number of years, and the proposed pool house. Neither of these would be visible from the street. If you've been to the property, it's heavily vegetated, and while the 1-story house had the disadvantage of adding a lot of coverage, whereas a 2-story house would be half the coverage, it does fit the neighborhood real nicely, the existing house and development of the property. The Circle is unique in that there is no separation between the road and the property line, so 2-story houses would tend to loom over the Circle, just because you don't have that typical roadbed separation. So Yeah, ideally, you would encourage one-story houses on the circle because they would be more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, that low view, low visibility, and not aesthetically unpleasing. So we did reach out to all the neighbors, and there's no objections. We also need a setback variance for the pool house, which, if you think of the circle, is a half circle, but it does have a small tail off the back of the circle, which goes down to the pond, which is essentially a driveway with a couple houses on it. That's considered, even though it's really a driveway, that is considered a front yard as well, and the pool house needs a front yard setback variance. Again, it wouldn't be visible from anybody driving around the circle. The neighbors have no objections. Since it's not visible and there's no objections, the only other possible thing would be you look for environmental detriment. Theoretically, coverage has an effect on the environment, and we are willing to propose an upgraded septic system if you were to grant the variance. So with that being said, I think it's a pretty good argument that an upgraded septic system.
Can you, hold on one second.
Sure.
Mr. Ackerman, can you guys, Mr. Ackerman? I think so. Can you guys take your conversation out to the hallway? Thank you.
They might want to hear me.
John, can you start from the beginning, please?
Yeah, I didn't like the way I started. Let me try that again.
Just take it outside.
Go ahead, John. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so I'm almost to the end anyway. So again, we got all the neighbors on board. You won't be able to see either the patio or the pool house from the street. And again, the street is not really a street; it's a driveway, essentially a driveway, but it technically is a street. And so it's a coverage variance, 700 square feet. It would enable the applicant who just built the house. It would enable him to have relatively normal use of his property, which most properties in the village would have a pool house, and a pool, a pool, and a pool house. But realizing that it is a 15% coverage variance, we did try to come up with a way to appease or to alleviate any concerns regarding the environment, and that would be where we're offering an upgraded septic system. The existing septic system was just built in 2016. It's a new house. It's unlikely to be replaced anytime in the near future. So this would be an opportunity to get this house on an IA septic system, and it is very close to the nature preserve. So it would definitely benefit the environment.
You're going to put it has a new IA system, or you're going to put a new one?
We're going to propose a new IA system. It's a traditional septic system. It was put in just before the law changed. So it's hopefully a fair mitigation for the request, which is 750 square feet of additional coverage. Well, the pool house itself would be a little over 200 square feet of coverage.
Okay, thank you. Billy, would you like to comment on your memo? Can we have Billy? And then we'll go to the board. Thank you, John.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Billy Hajak for the village. I don't have a whole lot to offer other than John's comment that this is a small pool house. It's 248 square feet. The maximum size pool house is 250 square feet. So small is it's a small building, but it's the maximum size pool house that you can build. I mean, in terms of the mitigation, offering a septic upgrade, an IA system, that's something the board would normally get for a project such as this. And I think the fact that it's a relatively new house, they probably won't be touching the septic system for another 20 years or more. So I guess could be considered fairly impressive mitigation. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to offer.
Thank you.
Unless you have any questions for me.
Sure.
Go ahead. Yes, please.
In walking around the circle, which I hadn't done, at least on foot, for a few years, I was stunned by the transformation of the circle. Have there, and there's a lot of obviously new development in the last several years, how many of those properties have had coverage for FAR variances?
Offhand, I don't know. I'd be shooting from the hip. I mean, we had directly across the street is the most recent. That was a a gross floor area variance. I don't recall if it was coverage, but I know it was gross floor area.
You know the extent to which
The gross floor area variance was really, no, I don't remember offhand. No.
this would request, there's some more information that would be useful to have in terms of just looking back over just what the degree of variances that have been.
The only other variance that I'm familiar with is it's a unique lot because it fronts on Hunting and it backs up to the circle, and that was a pool house technically in the front yard, but that was two lots that had been merged, and so it was a little unique, but that was a pool house that was reconstructed.
I'd just make the point to the board again, because it's going to request to hold the hearing open, that this, a 15% variance on a small lot in a highly dense residential part of the village is a lot being asked for a newly built property that could have addressed, I don't know that there's a compelling need for a pool house, but again, it involves looking at the site, understanding just what the degree of variance is, because this scale of percentage of variance is being requested for is significant, especially in this small lot constrained area.
Are you asking me to provide that information? Would you like me to provide it?
Ask the applicant to provide
okay.
it, but it'd be worth just checking when we get it in if that's.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, goal is not to try to impose more work on the village planner. It's quite full.
I appreciate that.
I do have a question for the applicant.
Before I forget, can I just respond?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to make you forget your question, but, so I was struck as well when I walked around the circle, when I took this application on. And the important thing to remember is, and I did look at all the properties on the circle to see who had gotten which relief, hoping for comparables. There has not been a lot of relief offered on the circle. So what you're seeing when you walk around there is actually two-story homes that meet zoning. The reason why it seems so different is because, again, the circle it's essentially a driveway with no road bed. So property line, so if you have a 25-foot setback or a 30-foot setback, normally you have that 20-foot gap between the property line and the road. In this case, you don't have that. So when a two-story home is built, it appears to be looming because even though it meets all zoning didn't take into consideration that in a situation like the circle, the road is very close to the house. So it kind of makes everything feel pushed in on you when you drive around the circle.
Yeah, a request to find some times to allow for a visit, actual.
Sure.
Significant fence there, gates, again,
Yeah.
not trying to
there
climb
is.
gates or be attacked by dogs or anything.
So I can get you those, I'll reach out to you or you reach out to me. My point though was going to be that ironically, had the applicant built a two-story home here, he would have the coverage he needs for a pool house.
You have
And the two-story house would be very in your face. So it was actually his decision to build a one-story house. And if you walk around the circle, you see this house is gorgeous with the landscaping and the fact that it's low and doesn't loom over. Unlike other houses in the circle, it doesn't loom over. Based on the fact that it numerically 15% may seem large, but again, you cannot see the patio or the pool house from the circle. And the first rule of zoning is do no harm. We reached out to all the neighbors to see if anybody would have, there was no chance I was going to come to this board if any of the neighbors had any objections. So we reached out to them before we even made the application, all of whom loved the property, loved the house, and said they have no issue with the pool house. Sorry, Jim.
There is a conforming location for the pool house, so I know you're going to be over coverage, but there is a conforming location. Just putting that out on the table here.
Yeah.
And you already have an outside shower, and you want an outside shower over on the pool house too?
We'd be happy to remove the outside shower from the pool house if that was.
The other point I would just make is that the reason for coverage regulations are not just visual impact from the street, but the degree of permeability and open space on properties throughout the village and variance of this scale, both on the individual property and on precedential throughout small lots throughout the village, could be quite significant. So it's not a small action, even though it's not a big. It's a small property, hence the gross numbers aren't that large. But taken, the implications of it are actually not insignificant.
No, I recognize that, and it was something we spent a lot of time on trying to figure out how to. So a coverage would essentially be an environmental issue, and that was why we were proposing the upgraded septic system, thinking that that might be a nice offset. As far as precedent goes, maybe that's a good precedent. It's up to the board, obviously, but maybe trading 700 square feet of coverage to get a new IA septic system is a net positive. That's a board's decision, just throwing it out there as mitigation.
We're going to leave the, go ahead, Jay.
One question I have. I know it's kind of an odd time of year, so you can't really see how the property is used in like the summer months. I've noticed on this property there is a lot of area that is gravelled. Is that area also used as like patios? Are there dining tables? Are there chaise lounges? Are there any type of stuff? Because, I mean, looking at this thing, you have probably about 20% of the property covered in gravel.
Yeah.
And not grass. I just want to make sure that if we're looking at this as a whole, how is the property being used?
I've been there twice when the trees had leaves on them and there was nothing under those trees. The gravel is a landscape feature, drainage, and probably better than lawn, which under the trees would need a ton of fertilizer and probably not grow well anyway. I've seen that used a lot frequently on projects where under trees. So I think that's the idea.
Okay.
I've never seen any sort of tables or chairs.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing I would just point out is in looking at the survey, there's not a whole lot of outdoor living space in the property. The patio that he added would be a small area. When you think about someone coming in asking for a 15% coverage variance, you think, well, maybe they're overusing the property. The pool has no patio around it, no decking around it. So it's just a quirk of the code. We all do know that the village's coverage ratios are tight. We all design projects and work within those, but frequently the board is asked for relief from coverage, and this is one of those properties. And again, I think it's a quirk of having designed a one-story house. If they had done a two-story house, ironically, they would have the room to add a pool house.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience have anything to say? All right, we're going to leave this hearing open. I mean, the IA system is something new that you've just proposed. And Mr. Rose would like to go with you to the property, or not with you, but he'd like to get on the property without any issues. So we'll keep it open to, I think it's January 8th. Is that our next meeting? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. The next hearing, please.
Application of 207 CHR LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-7-6-6.7 for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to convert a detached garage to an accessory dwelling unit. A variance of 8.8 feet is requested from sections 278-2B7E and 278-3A4A to permit the alteration of and conversion of a detached garage into accessory dwelling unit that is located 25.2 feet from a side yard lot line where the required side yard setbacks for an accessory dwelling unit is 34 feet. A 232 square foot variance is requested from sections 278-2B7E and 278-3A13A to permit 7,457 square feet of gross floor area, where the maximum permitted gross floor area is 7,225 square feet. The subject property is 62,247 square feet in area and is located at 207 Coke Hollow Road and is situated in Residence District R80. This project is classified as executive action in accordance with secret.
Good morning.
Morning. I'm Jackie Hubbard here from Toomey Latham, Shea Kelly, Dubin, and Corderero for the applicant 207 CHR LLC. Also here with me are Charles Barraza and Brendan Maloney from Barraza Architect. I'm going to speak first, and if they have any questions for them as well, just so you know they're here. This application is for two variances, both relating to the proposed conversion of an existing two-story garage to an accessory dwelling unit ADU under the recent amendments to section 278-2B7E. Because we are converting an existing structure, we request minor relief from the GFA requirements in section 278-3A13A and the primary structure setbacks in section 278-3A4A. Just to start, the proposed ADU will otherwise comply with the requirements for ADUs. It will not have more than 2 bedrooms. It will not exceed the maximum floor area for accessory structures. it'll be limited to family of the occupants of the primary dwelling, and it will not be rented out separately from that primary dwelling. Additionally, the property is greater than the required 60,000 square feet as required by the code for these ADUs. I'm just going to walk through the standards briefly. Because the structure is already existing, we're proposing no expansion of that structure. All work shall be completed in the interior of the structure. The garage has been located on the property since the 2000s and complies with the accessory structure setback requirements. This would require no additional or no significant or new disturbance of the property and minimal effect, if any, to the surrounding physical or environmental conditions. This change to the structure is to accommodate the applicant, who is a year-round resident of the area and of this property, his expanding family, and it won't change the character of the neighborhood or presumably cause any detriment to the neighbors. As indicated in our application, members of the entity that own this property also own 201 Cove Hollow Road and 211 Cove Hollow Road. So to the east and directly to the south, if you've been to the property, you know this is a flag lot, and you enter onto the property through a long driveway. Everything else is tucked to the back there. 211 sits in front of that, and 201's just to the right as you come in. There is already significant screening between the structure in question and 27 Jericho Road, which is the closest house to the southwest to the structure in question, and 21 Jericho Road, which is located a little further away and up the road on Jericho Road. The applicant is actually, of course, willing to provide additional screening if that is needed. And like I said, if you have been to the property, it is very nicely tucked away already. To just finish up with the standards for granting these variances, we hold that these are not substantial in the context of what we are proposing. The applicant has been trying to figure out how to develop or to redevelop these properties to accommodate his family, and he has chosen to take advantage of the new code changes to accommodate them in that way. Just like to raise at this point, at the time that we applied, we had not yet applied for a separate application for 201, but I wanted to make the board aware that we did submit subsequently application for 201 Cole Road as well. So that'll be coming down the pike also, which is for just the reconstruction of the garage on that property. Excuse me, I'm sorry, because this proposed project would remove the garage from this property and would allow us to use the garage over there. In the good faith of being open with the board.
As a garage?
How's the garage?
You're saying the new property, the subsequent application is going to be for the reconstruction on an adjacent property?
Yes, there's an existing garage there, yes.
Since this garage is being converted and it's joint ownership, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes, I didn't want it to be that we come before you again.
Appreciate it, thank you.
You're like, oh, it's you again.
Are you proposing a new IA system for this ADU or?
We will be, because it's required. We didn't submit that at the time of the application. The existing structure, is an updated IA system, and it does also accommodate the primary structure, but we can of course submit more information on that as well, and if you want to, if that's required, if the board would like to see that. There was a previous, I just want to highlight this briefly, there was a previous decision for the same structure, which is unusual, I think, in generally, that in 2015, that when the applicants had initially bought the property, this exact structure, this garage with a second story storage area, had been illegally converted by the prior owner. Our applicants had at that time applied to have that second story be used as an office. That was denied at the time because under the code, you couldn't have plumbing on the first floor, on the second floor in the situation. As we know, the code's been amended. And we do feel that this particular application is almost exactly what the code contemplates in this amendment. This as because the structure is pre-existing and is the conversion of it to the ADU would be nearly seamless and not require any additional expansion or work of the actual structure. at the time of that previous decision, it was found that the building was too large at the time. Obviously, the code now allows for this to be the case, and it is exactly in line with those requirements. I think because of those code changes, this is also just showing generally that some of the village plan for these kind of structures and for the development of the village in general has changed to some degree, but we are keeping in line with that, and this is a very reasonable application in that context. If there's, I'm available to answer any questions you might have at this time, and I also have architects as well if they want to step up and say briefly just about the project.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Charles Ferrazza, Bodas Ferrazza Architects, 74 Montauk Highway, East Hampton.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. So the actual building itself will not be changing in any height from the exterior. Like Jackie said, there's no change at all to the exterior volume of the structure whatsoever. We will not be adding any windows on the west side that faces the neighbor's property. That will remain just a blank facade, with the exception of the Palladian window that is currently existing on the second floor. But we will be adding new doors where the garage doors were and windows, as well as on the back side, the south side of the new structure that faces the pool. So the first floor would actually consist of dining room, kitchenette, and a living space with a powder room and a closet. And then upstairs would be the one bedroom with the bathroom as well as a closet. So like I said, there's really no impact on any of the neighbors on the west side. The only changes to the fenestration would be on the north side facing the house, the east side facing the motor court, and the south side facing the pool.
And we talked about the new IA system. Are you going to be proposing a new IA system?
Yeah, we'll work with the applicant on that. Like I said, I wasn't familiar with what the septic system was existing there. We were looking for this variance for the change in the use as well as the setback and the GFA. So yeah, we can work with the applicant upon that.
Thank you. Any board members have any issues with us?
I just want to say, I think this is exactly, this is the kind of application that the variance application that the code change contemplated. It's very much in keeping with the intent. I have no problem. I would like, just prior to the, again, bundle up and go walking around properties in the village in the next couple of weeks, but to come and see, just to see if we need to address that screening issue that the applicant raised, see if there's any comment from the village on that front. But other than that,
We don't have any letters in the file from any of the neighbors, any opposition.
Makes a lot of sense.
Is there anybody who'd like to speak on this in the audience? Thank you. So we'll keep the hearing open for written comment only, and we'll shut it down next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Application of 201 LPL LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-15-4-14 for a permit and variance from Chapter 101 Coastal Erosion Hazard Areas, variances from Chapter 278 Zoning and Chapter 124 Preservation of Dunes to make alterations and construct additions to an existing residence, reconstruct patios, walls, and walkways, a parking area, 2 sanitary systems, and stormwater dry wells, and landscape lighting. A coastal erosion hazard area permit and a variance is required in accordance with Section 101-9 to make alterations, modifications, and construct additions to a residence that is located seaward of the coastal erosion hazard area line, make alterations and modifications to the second dwelling guest house, and to reconstruct with modifications multiple patios, walkways, walls, 2 sanitary systems, stormwater dry wells, swimming pool coping, landscaping, and landscape lighting, all located seaward of the coastal erosion hazard area line. An 8.9-foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A-4A to make alterations and modifications to an existing detached garage and connect it the residence that is located 41.1 feet from the side yard lot line where the required side yard setback is 50 feet. A variance is requested from section 278.7C2 to permit alterations to legally pre-existing second residence dwelling guest house where the maximum number of residential dwelling units is 1. 4.4-foot variance is requested from section 278.3D6 to permit elevating of a second dwelling guest house to a height of 18.4 feet, where 14 feet is the maximum permitted height of an accessory dwelling building. A variance is requested from section 278.3A5D to permit a walkway 0 feet from a side yard lot line. Sections 124.1A1 and 2 and 278.3A7 prohibit buildings and structures within 100 feet of the 15-foot contour line and prohibits disturbance within 150 feet of the edge of the beach grass. The project proposes alterations and modifications and construction of additions to an existing single-family residence located 60.2 feet from the 15-foot contour, pre-construction with alterations of patios and walkways, the nearest being 42.5 feet from the 15-foot contour line, replacement of swimming pool coping 54 feet from the 15-foot contour line, installation of stormwater drainage, structures 40 feet from the 15-foot contour line, installation of landscape lighting and modifications and alterations to a second dwelling guest house located 54 feet from the 15-foot contour line, and all improvements and disturbance being located within 150 feet of the edge of the beach grass. The subject property is 116,548 square feet in area and is located at 201 Lily Pond Lane in Residence District R160. The property adjoins the ocean beach and is located in FEMA flood zones VE/EL 15. This project is classified as a type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Well, thank you, Gabby. You got through that.
I have a copy of that.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Yes, good morning.
It's always a pleasure to appear before the board. It gives me a chance to get dressed up, pull out some of my winter clothes, and stand up here and hear myself talk. Mr. Chairman, what I was going to do was just make a couple of brief remarks and then have Drew Bennett review the scope of the project. I have here, in addition to Drew, Tom Lawrence, the construction manager of the project. Drew Bennett is here. He's our engineer. Matt Packman and Linda Margolin, my partners, are here to answer any questions with respect. If there's a question that requires a deep down legal opinion. This property, I don't know if I pronounced it properly, called Cima del Mundo, was originally built in 1926 by a very well-known architect, Elchin Warder. It was designed on Lily Pond to reflect what was then called the Lily Pond Dunes. Over the years, there have been numerous property owners, culminating with the Williams family, who inherited it from the John Olin estate. This property was renovated in 31 and again in 38 after the major hurricane, in which it actually survived the hurricane. Records show that there was damage to the roof only. It was purchased in 1944 by John Olin, who had previously been a tenant of the property. And in 1956, Mr. Olin started making substantial renovations. These dealt with the garage, the main block of the house, the entrance, the windows, among other things. In 1994 and again in 1996, there was a retaining wall along the street that you all now see as you drive along Lily Pond Lane. In 2023, our client bought it. He's the owner of the adjacent property to the east at 199. He has spent the last 18 months developing this program to renovate this house and to make it current under FEMA standards, upgrading sanitary, the energy code, and to preserve as much of the existing house as possible. 90% of the variances that Gabby just read were all generated by FEMA Compliance. The rest of the variances, we can, go through each one of them, but they're mostly related to non-FEMA compliance. Drew Bennett's testimony here is going to review the construction protocol, and he's going to discuss how we're going to lift the house up. We're going to install the FEMA compliant foundation, and then putting the house back down. So just to make a brief reference, we did give consideration to possibly relocating the house further north. However, there were numerous factors that negated this approach. First, the poor load roading capacity of the soils on the new site, the disturbance that would be entailed in excavating and removing the foundation, and the pool from the present location would, in our view, create much more disturbance at the site, especially in the part of the CHA closest to the dunes. We believe that we've given you a well-supported, detailed application. Now, I'd like Drew to come up, and let Drew take you through the more technical aspects of the application.
Mr. Jackman, can I ask you, is this a tear down or rebuild, or this is a...
This is a restoration of the existing house, and that's what Drew's going to explain to you, how we're going to accomplish it.
Thank you.
I'll swear you in. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Drew Bennett, doing business at 74 Montauk Highway, East Hampton, New York.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Drew.
Good morning, board members. I am a consulting engineer on the project, and I'm going to give you a concise overview of the scope of work, the technical scope of work, and as it pertains to the zoning board's purview. The owner purchased the property like 18 months ago, and the team has conducted a number of inspections, including probing on the inside of the property, inside of the house itself. And I can report to you that, in summary, long story short, that the outside is quite weathered. There's some deterioration, and the inside, while being maintained, is very, very dated. So the owner would like to do essentially a gut renovation, which triggers other requirements that are required under the residential code as well as FEMA. As Len mentioned, the team did consider options of reconstruction, relocation, and considering all the design factors and other constraints, the conclusion was that the best option was to restore and conform in place. So with the gut update, I think Len had mentioned the key requirement that would be triggered by the code is to make a FEMA compliant foundation, which then triggers energy code updates to the structure, update to mechanical, electrical, essentially a residential building code. So there's a fair amount of scope that needs to be done. Let's see if I can. Are you familiar with the site? Perhaps I should walk people through the
It'd be
site.
great if you walk through it.
All right, thank you. This is the Atlantic Ocean. This is Lily Pond Lane. This is an existing rock revetment. This is the existing dog pens going to be removed. This is an existing garage that is going to be raised. Can you hear me? It's coming in. Will be raised and will be connected via a small breezeway, a closed breezeway. Will be used as both a wellness area and mechanical space. This is the main house. We think of it as two sections, this section and that section. This is the living room area that we'll talk about briefly. It's a patio area, an existing breezeway that connects to an existing guest house, which is here. And then there's an existing pool. Currently, the driveway curb cut, which I think most people are familiar with, is here, will remain the same. The driveway sort of meanders like this to enter the garage area. That area will be stripped of the driveway and restored, and a new parking court will be placed in the front of the house. There is a unique and attractive, I think it's referred to as a ha-ha wall. It's along the north property line that will remain. And so there's some minor paths and so on and so forth that connect structures. So a key element of the work is this is basically a vertical stretch of the house in place, which is unusual and innovative, but we've come up with a way to do it. So this is the existing house, 23.5 feet high. The first step, this is the stretching and vertical, this is what's proposed. The first step is to raise the house in its entirety 1 feet 5 inches to conform to the FEMA flood requirements. And then you'll see here that the cellar area is full of heating, electrical, mechanical type systems, which are not permitted under FEMA. And so we have to put them somewhere. And so the mechanical engineers have come up with a strategy of locating them in the ceilings of the first floor and the second floor, and also in the converted garage area. And that will require raising the ceiling heights of both the the first floor and the second floor. So we have met with Dawn House Moving and Bolger and Associates several times to come up with a strategy of how to do this. And the idea is that we will first lift the house, both floors and the roof all at one time. Then they will take the second floor system and raise this up 1 foot 6 inches, and then again raise the second floor system and roof another 1 foot 6 inches. So in its entirety, it gets raised 4 feet 5 inches, I think is the number. The total height at the completion, as I had mentioned earlier, from average grade is 27 feet 11 inches, which is within the maximum house height. The raising will occur to both the guest house, the main house, as well as the garage conversion. There's a couple minor additions, very minor additions proposed to the house. Hopefully I can remember them. Let's see. One is the actual connection to this former garage area, and then there's a couple small areas here. I don't have the exact numbers. Perhaps someone else can help me out with that in a few minutes. Let's see. Work also includes some minor site work. Not that familiar with what's going on here. Talk about that. Includes some minor site work, which I know we've discussed. 2 new sanitary systems, IA systems, that are beyond the landward side of the house. Some drainage dry wells. These are shallow dry wells. There are a couple located on the seaward side of the house. The dry wells are 8 feet deep. Some paths. There is a connection to the neighboring property, which the owner also owns, which is why we have this path here. And some landscaping. The pool will remain as is. The work has been carefully planned to limit site disturbance by utilizing the existing house footprint and constraining the site scope. And by our estimates, will result in about 40,000 square feet of site disturbance. Let's see what else just to give you a little visualization of, this is the current house. I believe, let's just see what we're looking at here. This is the south elevation, existing south elevation. So this is what's facing the ocean. And the blue illustrates the change in the height. The one-story areas here remain 1 story. The 2-story areas that are existing remain 2 stories, just the roof gets a little higher. This is, I guess, a slide if you wanted to talk about what relocation looked like. Look at that later on. Let's see. The new foundation will, I think a key element of this is that the existing foundation is a poured concrete foundation. It's a mix of foundations of a shallow frost wall, and then there is a large area that's 8 or 9 feet deep that's under the core portion of the house. The idea is that we will build a new FEMA compliant foundation consisting of helical piles and concrete pile caps within the existing foundation. And we'll modify the existing foundation to make it breakaway, essentially. So we're going to abandon it in place and modify it so that it meets the FEMA criteria for breakaway. I think that summarizes at a high level what I intended to present. Of course, we're here and available for any questions that you have.
Rose has a question.
Couple of questions. So,
Sure.
thank you. This is helpful.
Very helpful.
Can you can go back a few, for instance, the one that shows the basement, the,
Yeah.
for the main, there we are, that one. Next.
Careful.
You need an assistant.
So this may just be visual. Are the width dimensions of the house remaining exactly the same?
Exact same footprint.
So here it's the height increase because of the foundation and the mechanical system.
Correct.
Ms. Margot, please go up to, please.
So I think what, let me just,
I just wanted to point out the footprint is changing very slightly around one wing. There's about a 2-foot wrap. And the hallway that connects the repurposed garage to the main house. Those are partially offset by some bump outs on the front, the northerly facade of the house that are being eliminated.
So can you just specify on the,
Let's see if we can do this.
it's not on those boards.
It's not on these boards. Let's
On the
see.
site plan.
It's on the site.
Okay, 1 second.
Not that.
No, this one. No. Okay, I think you'll see it here. There's a small wrap around this wing. There's a bay bump out here, but there are bump outs here that are being eliminated. And this is the connection between the garage and the rest of the house.
what is the, on the elevation, what's the, so a new connection's being made between the garage and the main house?
Right, that's the only addition that you would see in terms of a changed elevation from the north side. From the south side, and I think we do have the elevations in the architectural plans, this area here is what you would see, and you'd see a little bit of this. It's mostly shielded by the house.
I could show it in the elevations.
Yeah, if you could show on the elevations, thank you, that's where I'm going.
But you don't really see that side right
Oh, just
now.
let me, excuse me.
Okay.
We've got quite a mess here with all our elevations. Where's the south elevation? Let's try it. See if we can answer the question. So, let's see. Again, we're standing. I'm looking at the right- this- I know, I'm just trying to
You're about to
get,
lose
just bear
your
with
tripod.
me, just bear with me. Okay. So this is the south elevation, this is the existing house, this is the proposed house. You can see that the entire line of the house gets raised. As I mentioned, the two-story area stays two stories, for one-story area stays 1 story. There is an area here, so this is the existing garage. You see that it's connected with a small breezeway.
And that breezeway will be climate contained, a full structure.
Yeah, and I think it's less than 10 feet long, and I mean, I can give you the exact dimensions, but it's de minimis.
On the western portion, the connection of the guest house,
This is an existing breezeway that exists today?
climate controlled?
No, it's open.
It's open.
It just gets replaced. Not replaced, but that portion of it is pretty deteriorated, so the idea is that they'll take that part of this connection roof off.
Is that connection going to be climate controlled or
No.
it's going to be open so as well? And the elevation of the height of that goes from what to what?
That also gets raised 1 foot 5 inches.
From the existing?
So you can see this blue shaded area is what gets raised.
And on the guest house?
Same, it's approximately 1 foot 5 because it's 1 foot 6 because it goes up for FEMA.
So the total elevation is 1 foot, is a 1 foot 6 change on the guest house?
On the one-
Because on the main house, it's
4 feet 5.
It's what?
4 feet 5
4
inches.
feet 5 inches.
Right.
On the guest house, it's 1.6?
No, it's, in round numbers, it's 15 and a half to 18 and a half, so it's about 3 feet. So that's the FEMA rise, plus they raise the ceiling for mechanical.
What are and that's the next question. So the ceiling heights interior on the, in, I guess, all parts change from what to what or stay?
Yep, I can answer that. Hold on.
On the guest house, it's 1.6. On the guest house, it's 4 feet 5 inches. On the guest house, it's 1.6. On the guest house, it's 15 and a half to 18 and a half, so it's about 3 feet. What are the, and that's the next question. So the ceiling heights interior on the, in, I guess, all parts change from what to what or stay?
Yep, I can answer that. Hold on. back to this figure, which is the conceptual plan, the existing first floor elevation, first floor height's 8, goes to 9'6". In that 9'6" is 1'6" for mechanicals, which is the blue hatched area here. On the second floor, the existing is, let's see here. The existing is what appears to be 7 foot 8.5, and it goes up an inch, 1'6".
And on the guest house and the garage?
Guest house. So the guest house we just spoke about, it goes from 16.5 round numbers to 18.5. And then the garage goes from 13.5 to 18.5.
Do either the garage or the guest house and breezeway portions on both, do they have substructure or basement, or are they on piles, or what's
Existing
the
or
foundational?
proposed?
What
Existing or proposed.
proposed?
So everything will be on new pile foundation to be FEMA compliant.
Right, but there's an area below the first floor. If you
So
just,
let me go through that for you. Okay. So the guest house has a very small cellar, maybe 12 by 8, that's just like has the hot water heater in it. And then it has a very shallow crawl space, like really shallow. So that will be raised. First floor will be raised. The whole thing will be raised 1'6" for FEMA. And then the ceiling gets raised 1'5", or I'm getting my numbers mixed up, but another foot or so. And then all of that is supported by helical piles. The breezeway right now is just old concrete piers that support, the wooden posts that support the roof. That will also be supported by helical piles that you won't see. It'll be flush with grade. The main house has a portion of old, I guess this has been added to over the years, has a portion of old crawl space, and then it has a portion of old cellar. And it's a pretty big old cellar. It's maybe 4,500 square feet. That's 8 or 9 foot deep. All of that gets raised and supported by helical piles and a concrete cap. And the old foundation that's underneath the house will remain in place. The new foundation's inboard of the existing foundation walls. And the old foundation will be modified to meet the breakaway standards. When you get to the garage is on a concrete foundation, like an old block foundation, not in great shape. That will also be raised and supported by piles.
there's no basement structure underneath this.
So under FEMA, you're not allowed to have anything. There's no space underneath this, there's no space underneath this. There is an existing cellar hole here that will remain an existing cellar hole. There'll be no mechanicals, there'll be nothing in it. And the garage has no gap underneath it except the space between the floor and the ground. So there's no.
So the basement space, sorry, last question. The basement space on the main house that exists, through which, the interior of which will be sunken piles, that will not be usable space, or that will,
Correct, the code would not allow for that.
of any kind, so.
So, the candid answer is some people will use it to store their outdoor furniture, but you're not allowed to have, it's not habitable. Right, correct. Right. Not heated, it's not conditioned.
No mechanicals, obviously, and
Yeah, and by the time you get done with the new foundation, it's a sea of piles. A forest of piles, as these.
Understood, that's. Thank you.
Any other questions?
just your construction protocol, you, a little bit on it,
You're gonna go through that?
and I went through some of it.
I think Tom will be.
Yeah, Tom Lawrence will do that. Could I just interject something? You can. Because Mr. Rose is, really focused on what's important here. I just want to point out to you, in answer to the chairman's point, I just want to run through a quick list of what's to remain. The existing roof framing is to be reused for the renovation. Doors and window openings to be preserved for the renovation wherever possible. Existing basement walls to remain. Existing wall studs is to be reused. Existing floor joists to be reused. I mean, we're trying to use as much as we can, but there has been over the last 15, 20 years, severe diminishing of this structure, but we're trying to preserve as much of it as we can, and so it looks the same as well. So let Tom, if you don't mind, Tom Lawrence is going to run through the construction protocol, and then we can certainly answer any other questions the board may have. Tom.
Morning, Tom.
Good afternoon.
My name is Tom Lawrence, representing Bolgen and Associates, working from 136 Main Street in Amagansett, New York, 11930, and 199 Mariner Drive in Southampton, 11968.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Did the board have specific questions?
No, just go through I know you have a construction protocol in here, but just maybe go through a little bit of it.
I'll touch on the high points, if you will.
Please.
Good afternoon, of course. Given the time and the import of these proceedings, I'm going to respectfully ask that we refrain from any Santa jokes until after the hearing. I'll be happy to stick around just to see if anyone has any new ones I haven't heard lately. To the chase, I'm fortunate to have literally grown up in the construction business and been originally trained by my father, a combat veteran Seabee, a hard but incredibly wise teacher. And one of the many invaluable lessons he taught me was that integrity is a commodity that you spend but once. The protocol was written with that foremost in our minds. On that note, I will readily admit that the construction protocols submitted to you in this matter, despite having gone through some 20 or so review and edit cycles with the entirety of our team, is not perfect and never will be. No construction plan, no disrespect to any architects, or protocol has ever been perfect or ever will be, unless it's written once the work is done. Construction protocols are inherently very difficult to craft, certainly on a project of this complexity, and at best provide detailed parameters for the project. And then they evolve in full concert with the building inspector and the planner as the project moves through the process of construction, such that any and all potential issues are identified in advance and properly addressed to the satisfaction of the village in a prompt and timely fashion that they approve prior to the work proceeding. As home builders and members of this community, we acknowledge our responsibility as temporary stewards for the owners, the property, the neighborhood, and the environment. We recognize the importance of safeguarding our existing natural features from any potential impacts or disturbances resulting from the proposed construction activities. We are committed to taking all necessary precautions to ensure the protection of the delicate environmental areas surrounding the project, and our understanding extends to both the micro and macro perspectives, emphasizing our dedication to responsible construction practices and our respect of the building department and the village planner. What's most important is that the protocol is in fact a contract between our team and the village, and specifically this board and its front line, the building department and village planner. We have successfully completed many similar projects in the village and various surrounding jurisdictions by working very carefully in concert with the building inspectors and planners, keeping in constant contact with them at every step in an open dialogue that assures both compliance and success. In short, we have promised to and will strictly adhere to all the construction methodology and strategies as defined in the protocol without fail. The CB motto is "can do." We respectfully promise that we will. I think Drew did a great job at running through the semantics of how we're going to perform the project. And rather than take the board's time and go through the protocol, which I presume, and apologize for all of you having to read, we don't want to go through it, but rather any specific questions or points that you'd like to clarify.
Members? Everybody's okay?
I read through it, I have no problem.
I don't have a problem
Very
with it either.
thorough.
Joe? Okay. I have one question for Tom. Is it SWIP, Suffolk County? Can I just ask Tom a question real quick? Tom's. Because of the size of the, I don't know how it comes in.
Good afternoon, board members. So yes, they're in plan review. The question was raised as to if the proposed clearing is sufficient first, and then if it would rise to the level of being over an acre, whereby a SWIP permit, which is stormwater pollution prevention plan, would be required through the EPA and through the DEC, and then us locally here. It looks tight. 43,560 is an acre. We have 40, almost 41, I guess, being cleared here, disturbed here, I should say, actually. So we just want to be mindful of that. I spoke to the Santa Claus, the builder here, and I've worked with worked with him for 25 years, and we do have a good working relationship. And I was assured that before any additional clearing or disturbance would take place, that we'd be notified, and if the pertinent permit would be SWIP permit would be pulled if need be.
What are the implications of a SWIP plan? What's the?
Well, the SWIP plan basically identifies any sources of pollutants that may be on the site or runoff, et cetera. A project in this area is also, is usually, whether there's a SWIP or not, has a pretty substantial silt fence, and they're mindful of the surrounding area.
Is that being done? Is that part of the protocol in any event? So what is the question is, since it's so tight, what is the difference between what would be required both operationally, which is most important, and procedurally, which is a question?
Well, it's a process. I mean, there's a log book that's kept, and inspections are made, and to see that things stay stabilized. It changes with each site, but there's that in and of itself is a protocol, but not necessary until.
I think I understand that pursuant to the chair's question that.
So the construction protocol includes a snow fence around the quote-unquote area that's going to be disturbed, so that will be a hard boundary. As Tom mentioned, if something happens and we realize that they need another, 1,000 square feet or whatever, village will be notified, will be adapted. If we go over the threshold of needing a state permit, which is a stormwater pollution prevention plan, we will go through that. We do intend to have silt fence around the perimeter of the work, which is what's required under the SWIP itself, so.
Right, so that's my question, I guess it's to Tom, but I appreciate this, which is that, is there, leaving the process aside, which I understand that it's been tightly drawn to avoid going into the bureaucratic process, is there anything substantive that the village would like to see as part of the construction protocol that has not been that might be imposed as part of a SWIP process, but that is not included here.
I think what they've done is they've provided the basic requirements for the SWIP, even though
Without
they don't
having,
have to.
understood, that was the question.
And the stuff that if the SWIP is triggered, the site analysis and stuff that they would do would then trigger additional steps, be it cleaning all the trucks leaving the site so no contaminants are going on other people's properties and stuff like that. But I think they are designing this protocol to tackle all those things beforehand on the basic level, if I'm
That's correct. Yes, spot on.
Yes.
Okay. I have one further question. This is, you've supplied a lot of drawings. There's one drawing that I think would be very helpful, and it relates to the fact that the most important, not from an environmental perspective, because there are a variety of issues and there are compliance issues, but the way this property reads as renovated from the beach goes to the commons of part of the village, and it'll be so a substantial, and recognizing the need to make a bunch of the changes here, it would be good to have a visual that shows I guess, I'm not sure if it's a cross-section, I guess a cross-section and a visual that shows from standing on the beach.
I thought we did that. I thought that's in.
No, there's an elevation. There's a south elevation.
Right.
But it's a south elevation. At least I didn't see it, maybe. Okay. That shows from standing on the beach how it reads from a person, a village person walking on the beach is going to see, because elevating at a certain point now, you see the main house, it's lower, it'll obviously be higher by 4 feet, but the question is to avoid, I'm not suggesting changes, I'm just asking to see what it's going to look like from the beach. Because there's a dune, and then there's the house set back at grade before, the house is right. Let me just finish the point so it's clear what I'm saying. Let me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish what I'm saying, please. Okay, if the house...
Linda, just a minute, just let him speak.
Okay, so there's going to be an elevation, an increase in height for the whole width of the existing house. There's a dune that goes in front of, some of that is below the grade, is not, only the roof part is visible from when you're standing on the beach because of the location of the dune. It will be slightly, and we're not talking about massive amounts, more height, more visible. It would be good to see what that volume reads like from the beach, which is, so involves a cross-section and an elevation, if you understand what I'm saying.
I understand exactly. If you could bear with me, though, we have a technical problem with this, in that the health department has a policy where by all applications for health department approval, properties on the water require, before health department will issue, a DEC permit, which we have non-jurisdiction, but requires ZBA approval, and then they issue their permit so we can begin the process. I'd ask you if you would allow us respectfully to close the record. We will deliver to you what you're requesting within 48 hours. We have to get it from the architects. I thought we had that. I think we do have it, but perhaps it wasn't in the folder. So we will certainly deliver that to you, but I would like the courtesy, if I could, to get the hearing closed so that a month from now, we'll be able to pull our health department permit. We're up against, of course, plover restrictions. We'd like to get started. There's a lot of work that has to be done here for prep and site work and the like. So we certainly will provide that. Everybody understand what Mr. Rose is looking for? Okay, we'll get that from the architects.
It may be the last sheet of the architectural plans.
All right, but whatever it is, it is. Okay, but if we could close the hearing, I'd like to be able to proceed.
So can I just go to Billy? Billy, can you go to the podium for a second? Sure. Please. And then just a Just a basic, are we waiting on anything from Vin or anybody like that at this point?
No, the application was not referred to Vin Gaudiello. I mean, the drainage itself is pretty straightforward. There's no depth to groundwater issues. They're using precast concrete rings for drainage. It's a standard septic, IA septic system. So this didn't rise to the level of attention that we thought it had to be referred to Vin. With regard to the protocol, if the board wants to close the record, I would ask that as a condition of the approval, we receive an updated protocol based on some conversations that I've had with Drew. I mean, I've met with Drew and we've had multiple conversations about the protocol. I understand it's a evolving process, but there are some kind of bigger picture items in the protocol regarding parts of the house that are going to be demolished versus not demolished. I think those bigger picture items need to be very clear in the protocol as to the scope of work. And so that, I don't think it changes the magnitude of the project at all, but it's just some bigger picture items that I think the protocol needs to flush out. And so I would ask that you either require that or condition your approval on requiring that. So other than that, I'm not waiting on any additional information.
And just to be clear on the issue, okay, I understand that there's cross-section, and just to be clear what I was saying, it refers to average natural grade and to where the house is located on the property, but it doesn't show, and I'm not, I understand. I just want to respond to the point that was made. I have the architectural plans, I've looked at them. How it presents from the beach and the relationship of the dune to the massing to the volume is
So, board members, we can close the hearing with written comment only. We can close it next meeting and then have a determination for written comment only. Are we happy with that?
I would be comfortable with that.
It's just explain.
We can keep the hearing open till the next meeting for written comment only, and then close the hearing next meeting.
I will have the revised protocol for you Monday morning. I just would like to move this along, sir.
Just as if everything comes by, and Billy, we can close the hearing next meeting, and we can have a determination next meeting as long as everything.
Okay. Everybody understand what we need to do here?
Yeah, I'd like to just make one clarifying point.
Please.
Come.
Belabor the debate, but, so, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the application with Billy Hayjack twice. Once I met with him at his request to go over the scope of work, which is a lot. The second time was to review our construction protocol with both he and Tom. Billy did call me yesterday with some questions on the construction protocol, and he mentioned that there was an inconsistency in how we were handling the existing living room here. And he said it was inconsistently presented in a diagram and it didn't match the text. Afterwards, I went back and I checked what we had filed. And I think what we had, and I think there's maybe a little confusion. What we had filed is correct, is what I'm trying to say. So the picture in the construction protocol matches the text of what we're doing with the living room. So, and I would argue that nicely that that's a minor detail. The second question that Billy had with regard to the construction protocol is, Drew, you're showing some dry wells are going to be on the seaward side of the house, and the protocol reads as you're going to use a light excavator. What does that mean? And I can tell you that that basically is a very small, wide track machine. I'm sorry, let me use that.
So we're going to fix it all and make it nice. We're going to give Mr. Rose what he wants. We're going to give everybody what they want. Just ask it.
Thank you.
Next January, I don't have to make this trip back.
January 8th.
We just close the hearing. Let's move on. This is a terrific project. We're all going to be very proud of this. This is an incredible opportunity where a landowner is restoring a magnificent property, and driving by in 2027, I think, you won't even realize that this house has been renovated and restored. It's going to be absolutely beautiful, both from the beach and from Lily Pond Lane. I thank the board very much for its patience here.
Thank you. It's all right. We're going to motion to close not the hearing, motion to close the meeting. Motion.
Sure.
Second.
Second.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.